I'm going to share exactly how I run a high-performing remote team, 23 people, 11 different countries, 7 time zones at my $1 million plus agency. And before we dive in, just going to show you some proof that we are a real company and we have done over $1 million in revenue last year, 2025. Our agency is hazmedia.co. I started this agency in 2020. I moved it to Dubai in 2022 and I still live here in Dubai and I still run this agency today. We help e-commerce brands scale. We do Facebook ads, we do ad creatives, and we do email and SMS marketing. We have real testimonials from real brand owners. We've worked with reputable clients. We've achieved some crazy results, and we have an amazing remote team. And I've made every single mistake in the book when it comes to running a business, but also building teams. So I'm going to be sharing all the secrets that I've learned today. And these are secrets from actually hard-earned experience and things that I wish I would have known in the earlier years because I would have been able to grow much faster, right? Here's proof that we did $1 million in revenue last year. This is literally our P&L. So, if there's anything that will show proof, it's literally the profit and loss statement that has all of our revenue and all of our costs. So this is in dirhams because I'm in Dubai. It's AED. We report our financials in dirhams. But if you were to directly convert this to US dollars, it's just over $1 million. And we operate at a 30% margin. This could be better, but just keep in mind that this is a agency that I have people in the agency who run the team, who run the operations, who handle the clients for me. My job is to bring in the clients and then just make sure that we're steering the ship in the right direction. But yeah, this is the way I built my agency. I would rather have less margin and more time to work on other things rather than, being stuck in the day-to-day and having a higher margin. And there is ways that we can increase this margin. 2026, we'll probably be able to do over $1.5 million in revenue and bring that margin up to 35, closer to 40%. So let's get right into it. If you run a remote team, you probably know this feeling. So on paper, everything looks fine. Your stand-ups are smooth, tasks are getting checked off, but something feels off. Things are slower than they should be, and you're not sure who's overloaded, who's coasting, or who's quietly burning out. So with my team of 23 employees across 11 different countries and 7 time zones, for the first 3 years, I was basically guessing. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 3 things that I've learned about building high-performing teams so you don't have to guess as much as I did, right? A quick context, as I mentioned, I've been running remote teams for years. We work with real clients. Everyone is remote. There's no physical office, right? These aren't theoretical ideas. These have been battle tested and proven, right? So number 1 is hire for ownership, then make ownership obvious. Now, even if you do hire for ownership and people are very good like owners in your company, very few businesses actually make the ownership obvious. And there's always a disconnect. So when you run a remote team, things break very quickly if people need handholding, right? You're going to find yourself constantly being dragged back into the day-to-day, right? Questions come through you. You see yourself as pretty much the bottleneck for everything. And as you add more clients, things get worse. So you see scaling and growing as a punishment to yourself so you don't grow. And that's just like one thing that I've seen happen, and it's happened to me as well. But what happens is when you don't share a space, like a physical office space, you lose all those micromanagement moments, right? Not micromanagement in a negative way, but more so like the pulse on the employees. And, just the quick ask like, hey, where are we at on that project? Or just jumping into a room to help solve a problem. So the first lesson for me was hire for ownership, right? And what this means is that I'm looking for people who are comfortable making decisions without being watched, people who naturally take something and run with it. I can say, here is the goal, this is what we're trying to achieve, and they basically figure out everything in the middle of where we are right now and where that goal is. Those are the people that you want. And you don't need to tell them to do every single thing, right? Yes, they might need some guidance and they might want to run some things by you, but they can pretty much figure it out themselves. But that's only half of it. The second half is you need to make it obvious that they can be owners, right? Because a lot of business owners, we like to hold the ownership and the responsibility and the control. We love that, right? We don't want to let that go. But if you don't do that, then your team is going to feel like everything needs to be routed through you, right? And they're going to come to you with questions, even if they're A players. They'll try and do some things alone, but they'll be like, well, Jordan, he likes when I ask him about it, or when I run it by him, so I'm going to run it by him. But you need to make it clear to your team that you own this, and therefore you need to make the decisions that are going to get us to this outcome, right? Yes, you can ask me things and whatnot, but this is what you own. This is your responsibility to get us to this outcome. So we have every kind of task or project that we're working towards as specific owners. We don't blur the lines between who's working on what. And when people know this part is mine, right, they know that ownership, the speed goes up, right, because there's less back and forth about who decides to do what. The drama goes down because responsibility is clear, and performance conversations become simpler to have because we know who to talk to about specific things. And if you're running a remote team and you're noticing like a lot of things getting dropped, there's finger pointing, like we don't really know who's owning what, then you need to ask yourself, does every important thing in our company have a single owner? And if the answer is no, start there. So that is really the first lesson that I learned the hard way. The second lesson is make FaceTime intentional, not random. And this is a big one. And even more companies miss this. So here's what it is. Slack and Zoom, they're amazing to keep work moving, but they do not automatically build trust. And most remote teams rely on a random mix of meetings and DMs and hope that work happens smoothly. And it doesn't, right? Like it might work at a small scale, but trust me, as you grow, things start to break very, very quickly. So we had to decide how we get FaceTime with our employees, right? People are remote, different time zones. It's not like we're walking into the office and seeing them every day. So what we do is we do monthly one-to-ones. I do a monthly one-to-one with all my full-time team members. We only have 9 people full-time out of the 23 total. The rest are contractors, people who work part-time. So it's not a lot. It's, a 30-minute one-to-one with each full-time team member. It's 4.5 hours of my time every month. And if you have 100 employees, then maybe that's not, efficient. But what you can do is you don't have to take those calls. If you have a small team, I would recommend you take those calls because the founder is still very close to the ground. But if you have a 100-person team or even a 50-person team, then I would recommend splitting those calls out, right? Maybe you're having one-to-one calls either direct with the people that report directly to you, but then you have your managers take calls with the people that report directly to them. So what we do in these calls is we learn about the person's goals, right? But we also understand, what is going on in their life right now. Where are they stuck? What do they need from me? Where do you want to grow? And also it's a chance for us to give them feedback, right? And also some praise as well. So aside from that, we also do small group calls, and that allows us to align on the key projects so people solve the same problem, build a rhythm together. Once people know what each other's priorities are and their workload and what they can do and what they can't do, things become much, much easier, right? It sounds so simple, but we didn't do this, right? Like it's crazy, but we were able to scale, but we didn't do this until a later stage, and it was needed. At least once per year, we do an in-person trip. We do a different city every time, but basically the same idea is that we get as many people in the same space as possible. And these team trips, it's not about sitting in an office together and doing work. Yes, we do work, but it's more focused about, the things that happen in between. It's the relationship building, the gym sessions, the dinners, the inside jokes that happen. And when you do this, and after these team trips, I've noticed the same pattern every single time. It is always a huge, overwhelming positive. Yes, it costs us some money to run these trips, $5,000, $6,000, but I don't see it as an expense. I see it as an investment in the team, right? Now, you can do this probably on a lower budget. Depends how dispersed your team is. But, we do things like, the company pays for the accommodation and most things in the trip. Everyone else pays their way there and pays and, helps chip in for groceries and stuff. That way, we kind of distribute the cost a little bit more. We don't make these mandatory either, and people come if they want to. But even with those rules that we had in place where people had to pay their own way there and chip in on groceries and stuff, we still have a ton of people come to these trips. And by the way, we only do this for full-time team members, right? If we do it for everyone, it starts not to make as much sense, right? As a small company, of course. So what happens is people actually start to like each other. Wow. Like who knew that if you spend time together as people, you might actually start liking each other more, which helps you work better, right? You work better with those people that you actually like and enjoy spending time with. And look, even if you don't like the person that you work with, you still find common ground and you have shared memories together. Another benefit to this is it makes all the hard conversations and tight deadlines easier to get through. When people feel genuinely connected, they push harder for each other, they communicate more directly, and also they stick around with the company longer. If your remote team feels disjointed, this is one of the highest ROI things I've done, and I think any company can do, is you make FaceTime a feature of how you operate, right? It's built into the processes. So let's move to the final point, number 3. Openness is great, but data makes it even better. What does this mean? So we have an environment at my company where anyone can speak up about workload or feeling stretched or new ideas or something that they don't agree with. It's not a free-for-all, right? We don't just implement anything that someone says. We take it on board and we actually analyze and say, have we done something wrong here? Is there a way that we can improve? And I encourage this and I take it very seriously. And this is, for me, I think this is a must with remote work. When in an office environment, maybe not so much important, although I'd say it's still important and you should still do it. But for example, the biggest companies in the world, like Toyota, for example, they have this environment and they have it built into their culture where people can, like line workers can stop the production line and basically call out an issue to say, hey, this is wrong, because they're putting the power back into the people's hands, right? It's not so top down, right? It's more bottom up in a way, but essentially it's more of a meritocracy where like the best idea wins, right? That's really what we're running here. But ultimately, I'm still making final decisions and I'm relying on my leaders to also make those micro decisions on a day-to-day basis. So here's what I learned the hard way. By the time someone says they're overloaded, they've usually been carrying too much for too long. And I'd have moments where someone finally tells me like, hey, I'm just drowning and I can't do this. It's not sustainable. And when we actually dig into it, we've seen this been happening for weeks or even months. And sometimes, people have raised things to us and we don't, you say it's a lot of work, but we feel like you could handle it, right? And that can be based on experience, based on what another person in the role is doing, right? If this person can handle this much, but you're only able to handle this much and you're complaining about the workload, there's a disparity there, right? And yes, you need to be able to take all these things into account, right? It's not just about what a team member says, it's also about what are the raw facts. So now what I try to do is I try to catch those signals earlier, right? So I pay attention to things like who's always the hero jumping in to save projects at the last minute, who's in way too many meetings and not enough focus time, whose responsiveness or engagement in Slack has quietly changed over the last few weeks. And this is one of the reasons why I'm leaning into tools like Yander. And I actually built Yander myself because I wanted a clearer pulse on engagement, workload, and collaboration across my team. So what Yander does is it looks at patterns in Slack, email, and meetings. And it doesn't spy, there's no employee surveillance going on. And it can't actually do any creepy tracking like screenshot your computer screen or record your computer screen. Like there's some time tracking tools out there that do that. It's crazy. And it turns the behavior I can already see, right? Things that I already have access to into actual signals. And actually, it can be on meetings when I'm not on meetings. So just because you send a note taker to a meeting and you look at the meeting notes and the summary, it doesn't really give you the context, right? It tells you what happened on the meeting and what the action steps are, but you miss the behavioral things in between. So Yander, essentially what you do is you connect it to the existing tools that you're using, Slack, Zoom, Google Meet, Notion, Gmail, and it will basically feed all the data in from Slack messages, patterns of communication, response times, meeting attendance, meeting engagement, message sentiment, and more. And it will use AI and behavioral insights and learnings that we've trained it on from real data and experience to push out individual risk and health scores, engagement and sentiment trends, workloads, burnout alerts, collaboration and meeting quality, and actionable recommendations as well. We can see a database of every team member and understand, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the risk of them leaving the company? What is their workload? How much are they collaborating, engaging, and more? Now, this is extremely, extremely helpful. And again, it's not a surveillance tool. Like we're not trying to spy on employees and try and catch them out. What we're doing, it's collaborating the team, bringing the team together so we can support them sooner, so that we can fix broken systems before it turns into burnout and churn. Employees want an environment at work where they can do their best work, where they're not overloaded, where they can actually have a life outside of work as well. Now, with remote work, it's very difficult to understand exactly where someone is at all moments in time. Usually you only hear about it when it's too late or when things have got really, really bad and then you have to fix it. But with a tool like Yander, and this is the reason why I built it, is because it helps us spot those things early on. It's better for the team, it's better for the leaders, it's better for the owner, and yeah, it's all round win-win. So I'd go ahead and check that out if you think that will be helpful for you in your situation as well. So to round this out, remote work is incredible leverage. I would not change it for in-office work, at least for this agency setting that I'm working in right now. You get access to global talent. People can work where they're happiest and the business can be far more flexible. But high-performing remote teams don't happen by accident. They're designed. And for me, that design looks like 3 different things. You hire for ownership and then you make the ownership obvious. You make the FaceTime intentional, not random. And you combine an open culture with real data and signals. And if you run a remote team and you want to see exactly what's going on behind the scenes, check out what we're building at yander.io. And if this video was helpful, let me know in the comments down below what your biggest challenge is with your remote team right now. I'll read those comments and then it will help me decide what videos to make in the future. All right, that's it for this video and I'll see you in the next one.